Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.
This week at Safeway, shop the 10 for $10 produce sale. With the 10 for $10 produce sale, get items like large avocados, mangoes, green, red, orange, or yellow bell peppers, cucumbers, large lemons, or 16-ounce bags of Signature Farms baby-peeled carrots for the member price of just $1 each. Plus, select meats like Signature Farms 80% lean ground beef and Signature Select extra meaty pork loin back ribs are buy one, get one free this week. Hurry in before these deals are gone. Visit Safeway.com for more deals.
Round 1, 2022 is done, and episode 1 of the season. We had 1 or 2 before this, but 1 of the season is now being recorded. And Drewy Jones, hello to you, my friend. I don't think we ever envisaged ourselves saying round 1 defeat to Gold Coast at home has actually left us with a smile on the face. But that was the reaction at the end of that one on Sunday.
And that is 2022 in a nutshell for you, Garby. You say and go through things that you never thought would happen, and that's been footy since about Wednesday night. Some weird stuff has happened, and the round culminated with West Coast playing really well, considering the context and circumstances. Unfortunately, in the last 5 minutes of the game, we weren't able to get it down our end and kick a goal, get in front and hold out. And the Suns definitely got better as the game went on, didn't they? And they had to. I mean, I was joking with friends, and I'm sure you said something similar, that if Gold Coast couldn't win that, then you may as well have shut the club down and started again. But I think aside from a few little things that needed fixing up from the Eagles, considering there was guys playing who, you know, Patrick Naish had been at the club for 2 weeks, and he was pulling on a jumper for the first time. So the cohesion wouldn't have been at an all-time high, but they acquitted themselves really well.
Most certainly. And I mean, ultimately, we didn't have enough runners in the midfield. Drew, I was thinking that might be on the weekend the worst team the Eagles have ever put out on the park. It could be right up there. Like, definitely in the last 10 years, like since the Wooden Spoon, without question, the worst team we put out on the park in an AFL game. Maybe even going back to the late 80s, 87, 88, 89, in line with maybe some teams around that era, maybe the Ken Judge years, and we fell away badly.
I wouldn't say bad, because I think that's doing them an injustice. I would say the most inexperienced team that we've rolled out for a very long time. Maybe even that's not even the right word, but I'm just thinking back to a couple of those Ken Judge teams that had like Greg Harding and Richard Taylor. Yeah. They were, but Josh Wooden was like our second best midfielder, but they were pretty bad. And then towards the end, a couple from Worsfold when we were starting to struggle. We had a few weak teams there, like Callum Wilson was our number 1 forward. We had that era where we had like Trent Carroll rolling out as a key back. Like there's been a few, but I couldn't help but feel really buoyed by and loving seeing some of those fringe players come in and do their thing and give it a red hot crack. So I don't want to denigrate them, but yes, it was one of the weakest teams we've fielded.
Yeah, and it was just incredibly undermanned. We had 12 of our best players out, and then a heap of blokes who would have been there to buffer things up, like a Campbell Chesser, for example, gone as well. You're calling on guys. Hugh Dixon's effectively a COVID top-up player, right? Like he's effectively that.
Yep.
And he has to come in and play centre half forward. Naisha, you mentioned, flown in, effectively a COVID top-up player, like the equivalent of that, and has to come in and play round 1. So that was the predicament we're in. We still had some gun players out there, and they all handled themselves really well. Like I thoroughly enjoyed the way we went about it. And it ties us back to last season when we got so annoyed. It wasn't because the team lost games. It was because they gave up in games. Geelong away, Sydney away, Bulldogs at home, Collingwood away, the way we capitulated in certain matches like Saints away. the Dockers game, a few others where we just dropped our bundle. This was a team who was punching way above their weight, especially when you look at the midfields. I mean, we had Gaff, Redden, who was the third midfielder in there? Like Xavier O'Neill, maybe at the bounce,
it was
or
Willie.
Rioli or Jermaine Jones.
Yeah, it was Willie.
Yeah, up against Miller, Rao, Noah Anderson, Braden Fiorini, Brandon Ellis. Like, come on. So, and we were level in the last term. We were always likely to get run over because of that, but we were level in the last term. So I just loved the endeavor, loved the commitment. I loved the fight that we had. And when we start to get our sideline guns back, we might have 4 or 5 back this week. We'll look at that later. It gives you some optimism that maybe we can conjure up something from this season.
Yes, the midfield was always going to be the issue. I mean, you could look at our injury list and that was as plain as day, but also the fact that the Suns essentially made a decision to hang their hat on being able to win the contested ball, having Rao, Anderson and Took Miller as 3 sort of contested inside beasts. I know that Rao and Anderson are still young, but that's the way they're inclined. Like they're inside winners. And Took Miller is one of the toughest and best runners in the competition. So he was always likely to run rings around us, and he played really well. And then Fiorini's, a decent sort of inside-outside sort of guy. So, I mean, Jermaine Jones, like that was sensational from him to kick a couple of goals, like that mid-forward. He played the dusty role. Jermaine Jones filled the dusty role for West Coast. Like to say that out loud 5 times, you get your head around it. But he was awesome. We've always talked about Jones being tough. Like he's got a bit of grunt and he's never going to leave us wanting for effort. But he got reward for a big preseason. Simo said it after the game, and then Jack Redden said it again today. He was probably the Eagles' best trainer over the off-season. I know that's an easy thing to say, but he's actually gone out in round 1 and done it. Laid 5 tackles, 20 disposals, kicked 2 goals. So Jermaine was particularly impressive for me, and he's a great story. And he had to come, from a long way back even to get a spot on the Eagles list. So good for him. I think it's great. I was really happy for Jack Redden. He was sort of cast aside at the end of last season. We spoke about how he just had to pick up the salary of what was left in the cap. But he's so reliable for us. And again, maybe some might say he's not in our best 22 when everyone's fit. But he was awesome for us when we had very low numbers in the midfield. And then, Andrew Gaff just did normal Gaff things, running around, getting lots of kicks around the ground, which is a role that he fulfills really well. Maybe on a day like Sunday night, the 32 disposals from Gaff and the run that he offered around the ground, maybe it doesn't shine through as much, but that becomes even better once, Shuey, Yo, Kelly, Sheed are back in the team. So promising signs. Who did you like from the young brigade? I mean, we touched on Jones just then, but who else did you like?
I mean, Brady Hoff did his thing. I mean, he probably goes out this week when Witherden comes back, but he looked fine. No one thought he'd be playing round 1 when we drafted him. His kicking was good. His endeavour and his pace, his commitment. Adam Simpson talks about his footy smarts and how he's adapted to, AFL tactics and when he has to zone off and drop into certain spaces. So, liked what he did. Jack Petrocelli showed good signs. Again, the worry with Jack is that he only had 12 possessions, Truey. Mm-hmm. So he's kicked his 2 goals. He looked electric. He just needs to get over that 15 possession mark. He needs to get the ball like 5 more times a game. That's the issue with him. We can see that his body looks better. We know that he can break a game open. He kicks a couple of goals. But I just think he needs to be more than just a pinch hitter. He needs to get involved a little bit more. If he can do that, then I think Jack can dispel any knockers, silence any critics, of which I've been one. He just needs to get a little bit more of it. Probably the same with Zach Langdon. I like his commitment, started the game well, takes a big mark, kicks a good goal, and then you don't see him for a bit. So he needs to get involved a little bit more as well. And Xavier O'Neill. How well did he start the game? We all thought, here's the X that we thought might be inside that player. And he can jump up and be a surprise because he wasn't getting a game, I think, if 1 or 2 other players were fit. Tim Kelly's fit. I don't think Xavier O'Neill plays. And then he started nicely, kicked a goal, and then he ends up with 13 disposals. And you go, well, looking at the team that we had, he should have been pushing 20 touches, shouldn't he? So there were a few that looked good, but just needed to do more, like Sam Petrevski-Seaton's game. Naish was solid. Jermaine Jones, brilliant. And then Luke Foley was the standout, Drewy, of the youngsters across half-back, who really looked at home. And there was a kick late in the game where I thought that's the Luke Foley that we've been speaking about on the Nest podcast, that 50-meter precision kick, Shannon Hearn-like out of defense. So he's someone who really stood out. And I think it's going to be really tough to remove him from that back six.
Love everything about Luke Foley. Ever since he kicked that goal against Carlton, I've been right on his bandwagon. But his start to his West Coast career has been sensational, and we saw the next level that hopefully he can maintain something close to that. But he's going to be hopefully an important play for us for a long time off that half-back flank, and then who knows whether they roll him up onto a wing at some stage. But he looks at home in that back six. So I think you're right. And obviously with Tom Cole, a long-term absentee, and Brad Shepherd retired, you think there's definitely a spot there for him moving forward, regardless of some of the personnel that come back. Out of the young guys that played on Sunday, so I'm thinking Williams, Dixon, Hoff, O'Neill, Naish. I don't think we'll throw Petrevski-Seton into there. And then like Foley and Jones, we kind of know they're in the team. But from those other guys who we saw, can you see any of them playing, 15 to 18 games this season being sort of a significant part of the team?
Dixon, no. I think Williams can as a backup ruck. People still like to knock Bailey, and he's very young as a ruckman. He's raw. I think he can contribute a bit more as the season goes on. I still think it's worth having him in the side. So I can see Bailey Williams getting up to around 15 games potentially. Dixon, no. Hoff, no. He's just too raw at this stage, unless we have a bad injury run. They don't seem to rate O'Neill. Everything in pre-season suggested that they just don't factor him in the plans a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seemed like he only got in because players were out this week. The warm-up games, he was on the periphery. Naish might get up to 15 games. I think he's someone that, certainly look like he might add something, especially as we're trying to move the ball quicker and get a bit more pace on the outside. And we've spoken about needing wingmen. He had 5 inside 50s again. I'm a big inside 50s man. Someone who can get the ball in there. And wingmen obviously have the best chance of doing that. Yeah, I think Naish could get up to 15 potentially as a wingman.
Yeah, I agree. I think he fits a bit of a need for us right now. Like I'd rather have Naish as the guy rotating onto the wing than probably, say, an ex-O'Neill, and then probably maybe Hoff in the future could do that, but looks like they want to use him as a backman this season or for the foreseeable future. So I think Naish sort of fits into what we're trying to do. So as you've said, so I could see him playing a bit of footy this season, particularly early while we've still got a lot of those guys coming back from injuries, waiting on Sheed and someone like a Luke Edwards who might have had that spot, if things had been different for him in the preseason.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Andrew Gaff, because I was a little bit concerned watching him on the weekend. I know he had it 32 times, 4 inside 50s. He still looked a bit slow to me. And I take your point on what you said before, when the other guys come back, then maybe that's not as exposed. But the pace looks a real worry for me at the moment. Where do you think he's at for us?
Where he's at is he's going to run up and down one of the wings and get a lot of easy kicks. And he'll be a link man. Like there was a passage of play where I was standing next to a West Coast fan, and I think maybe Foley had it, let's just say, for instance, and he kicked short to Gaff. And then my Eagles friend leaned over, he said, this will go back to Gaff, probably a sideways kick, maybe a little chip over the top. And sure enough, Gaff jogged around. He got the next link, 15-minute kick. And then I think maybe Gaff even kicked it back to say if it was Foley, and they just did a little kick to kick down the wing. Like that's what Gaff's going to do. He's going to provide a link for us. He'll get lots of easy possessions, but he's doing that work, and that allows hopefully us to structure up correctly ahead of the ball and also structure up correctly behind the ball. So him sort of grinding away on that wing, I guess, is allowing others to do their thing and set up correctly, but he's never going to break open a game for West Coast again. But those days are over. And if we accept that, and then he's going to be a wingman role player for us, then if we accept that, then that's fine.
Yeah. I think as you made the point before, when Kelly, Shuey, Yo come back into the team, along with a couple of others on the outside, and then you're bringing Jermaine Jones through a bit more, then maybe that's not as exposed as much. Perhaps the weekend wasn't a great example to make note of when you look at Gaffey, but there were times even when he had space and he got closed down really quickly. Like the game speeds up so much every single season. And if you are dropping off 5% in pace and the game's increasing 5% in pace, well, you're being exposed by another 10%. So that's the big worry for me about him moving forward. But hopefully the other guys coming back helps.
Yeah, well, there's going to come a time where you'll look at Gaff in the team and you'll think, and we'll start thinking, surely there's a young player who's going to offer us a bit more bounce and a bit what Clarko used to say, get electricity in your boots. There'll come a time where we'll start thinking that, but it's just not right now because the personnel issues are so bad.
Yeah, exactly right. The back line was impressive. So Gov looked like the Gov of old. Tommy Barrass was excellent. What a moment that was. We need to touch on that. It happened early on in the game, and then the contest was an arduous one that maybe got forgotten a little bit. But Tommy Barrass's first goal was brilliant, and all the boys getting around him, and his performance on the whole was just fantastic. So really liked what our two key backs were able to do. That unit was back in sync.
Isn't it funny how that came up as a discussion point when he started doing a bit more training as a forward? It was like, round one, he might swing forward. It's his 100th game and he still hasn't kicked a goal yet in senior footy. And then I saw a friend of the show, Will Schofield, he was tweeting it, I think Sir Swamp Thing, trying to ask, has someone ever kicked their first goal ever in their 100th game? It certainly was it was an awesome moment. You love those moments when you're watching your team that causes the entire squad to run in and get around one guy and ruffle their hair and hug them and kiss them and, give them pats on the back. Because when you see that, you can see the connectedness of the team, how much they love that player, and also that they are appreciating a special moment. So, that's going to go down as a huge highlight in the 2022 season. We get it right off the bat. But the two key pillars were good, weren't they? As the back six held up pretty well, considering, clearances were relatively even, but we got smacked in ground ball and contested ball, which it's always going to make life as a defender harder. And Gov certainly played well. And Tommy Barrass was good. And everyone who rolled back through there did their jobs really under some pretty severe duress at times, particularly the longer that the game went on. I don't know if you saw this, Garby, the expected scores, that stat based off all of the statistics on the ground. What would your calculated score be? And I think it had Gold Coast to win by like 55 or 60 points. So West Coast outperformed the statistical elements of the game because we were efficient going forward and then we defended pretty well as well. So it gives you an idea that even though we were undermanned and things weren't going our way, we still held up, and we were battling hard. And then when we got our opportunities to go forward, we were able to kick goals and be efficient. So some promising signs across the team.
Yeah, we love the work of Gov and Barrass. That's probably a pretty good segue to get into our votes and delve a little deeper into the best from the weekend. And of course, as we love on the Nest, get all of your 5-to-1s as well. Thanks for all your responses. We're off to a flyer. I did mine on Twitter on the weekend, so I've released them, but I'm happy to just go over them again quickly. My 5-to-1, they were for me, Jermaine Jones 5, thought he was our best player. Jack Redden 4, McGovern 3, Foley got the 2, and Rioli 1. So I thought Tom Barrass was unlucky to miss out on that, but that's how I saw it. Drewy, you?
Yeah, really similar for me. So 5 for Jones, best game he's played as an AFL footballer, and he was excellent for us. Loved Redden's endeavour and his work rate, stood up in the midfield, so 4 for him. I went 3 to Foley, Gov 2, and then Rioli 1. I almost could have given Rioli more. the impact that he had, even though it was low possessions, but it felt like he was always dangerous when he was around the ball, ran back defensively, got forward, kicked a goal, from long range, but just generally looked dangerous.
So you got the votes there, mate. Lots of very good submissions, a lot on the similar line. It wasn't too different, I think, to our 5. So do you want to tally them up for us for round 1?
Yeah, Jones runaway winner with 5 votes. He got 100 votes overall. And then Redden gets the 4, Foley the 3, McGovern 2, and then Rioli 1. And then honourable mentions were Barras, Petruccelli, Gaff, and Sam Petrevski-Seton on debut for West Coast. What did you think of Samo?
Yeah, good. I liked him. I thought his kicking was really good. I think he'll grow into it. They're all going to benefit from having better players around them. Like Sam Petrevski-Seton is an outside player, which means he needs guys in the middle to do a lot of that hard ball winning so he can maximise his talent, which is his kicking. There are a couple of wonderful little kicks from him. He'll get into spaces where he can use his kick to kick goals as well and set up players when we've got a bit more space. So, yeah, I liked it. I thought he looked really good. And I think as he gets more confident in our system, he'll get back down the ground a bit more and probably improve his possession rate. I thought it was a solid outing. What did you think?
Yeah, every time he had the ball and was given some space to use his foot skills, it was like when Adam Simpson has spoken about him playing sort of a forward mid-role. I think that's exactly why they want to use Samo in that position, because the hardest kick to nail in footy is that kick going inside 50, right? And he looks pretty adept at finding a target. Vision's really good. Skills are good. So, yeah, I thought he worked into the game nicely and hopefully promising signs.
All right, so North this week, Drewy. I expected more from North against Hawthorn. I thought they might win, and they blew a big chance. So, yeah, maybe we are an outside one to get our first points of the season on the road against them. They'll go in favourites for good reason. How do you see the matchup?
Yeah, I think if we get back a few of the senior players who are potentially available this week, then that makes a massive difference to the makeup of the side. Bringing in sort of 5 top 15 sort of talents and having 5 fringe players go out should significantly strengthen the team. So Shuey's a test with the hamstring. Would be great to see him back. I think he wants to play. It's just a question of whether the club are ready to play him. And we know we get Witherden back from suspension. And then Ryan and Kelly out of the COVID protocols. Kelly didn't train today, but he's expected to play. Ryan did. And then question mark around Jack Darling. Talks about, a foot injury, whether he's match fit enough. But Adam Simpson said that he is available for selection this week. So that could seriously bolster the team. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with Willie Rioli, and I'm not going to try and preempt what happens at the tribunal. But hopefully it's a stronger team, and you would expect if they have that endeavour again with a stronger team on paper, then we're a big chance.
Yeah. I'm surprised we're challenging Willie. There's no harm in trying to overturn it because there's no extra penalty. But I thought he went for the ball. Some of the people having a crack at him, I think, have got it wrong. Like, I thought he went for the footy. He just got beaten to the footy. It should have been a free kick to Rao because Rioli got him late. If you go into a contest, the opponent beats you to it and you get them high, it doesn't matter whether it's a bump or a stray arm or whatnot, it's a free kick. He got him high. It was a free. We were lucky on that one. And I think you do have to give him a week for that. Like, that is the rule book now. I mean, if you are reckless and you go into a contest and you're second to it and you catch someone with that force high, well, they're going to have to give a week to try and limit players putting themselves in those situations. And we know that more than anyone from the Daniel Venables thing. Like, we know how traumatic this can be. So they have to try limit it. I think he does deserve a week, even though it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, I feel sorry for him because he's trying to contest the mark. But if you're second to the ball and you aggressively attack the space in which the other player is going for the ball as well, then you put yourself at risk. So my sympathy is thoroughly with Willie, and I would hate to see that action taken out of the game, but there is a chance that Rao could have had a broken jaw or, a concussion out of that incident. And then if that happens, then Willie's looking at 4 or 5 weeks. In this instance, he's just being punished for the action essentially and not the result. And I'm okay with that because too often we've said in the past the tribunal has been penalising results and not what the player has actually done. So I can live with it if he gets a week. Obviously, much prefer to have him out there, but yeah, we'll see what happens at the tribunal. Obviously, as you said, apart from the $10,000, they have to pay to challenge. There's nothing else that they're going to lose. So, yeah, fingers crossed for another good performance. Garby, I know we're coming off a loss and against Gold Coast at home. Normally, that's a position where you'd be fairly distressed as an Eagles fan, but given what we've been through, I thought it was a relatively positive start to the season.
So let's look at the changes for this week. So, yeah, the Shuey one's interesting. I mean, he's ready to play, clearly, but they might again be extra cautious and say, do we need him to travel? Like, why don't we just save him for round 3 at home? Doesn't get on the plane, put that extra stress on the muscle, maybe with the trip, and just round 3 is his comeback game, just so we're being 100% extra cautious, 150% extra cautious with a player who's had a lot of muscle injuries. That's surely the only thinking around it, right? Is let's not make him travel for his first game back.
Yeah, I mean, that they should be cautious with him. But Adam Simpson has often said publicly with Shuey that, well, if a player's fit to play, then you just pick them. But yeah, you can understand ultra cautious, but he's having a fitness test later this week. So he's by no means booked his plane ticket yet to play in the game.
Yeah.
And let's just hope that he can have a bit more luck with the soft tissues because it's been a horrible last couple of years for Shuey.
So the changes I've got then, I've got Kelly in, Ryan in, Darling in. It sounds like he will play, and Witherden in. So if those 4 come in, I've got out Dixon for Darling, Hoff for Witherden, and then for Kelly and Ryan, out would go O'Neill, and then Rioli with suspension most likely, unless it's overturned. Then if Shuey comes in, I think you're dropping one of Langdon or Naish. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, pretty similar, to be honest. Depends what role they want to use Naish in, whether they would, with all those midfielders coming back, do they then, Jermaine Jones, play a bit more forward? Therefore, you don't need Langdon, but you still need Naish on a wing. So how they balance that all out would be interesting. But yeah, that sounds pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah, so I think we're a little bit tall with Bailey Williams and Harry Edwards still in the team. That's the only thing of our makeup on the weekend that I went, we want Harry Edwards in the side. But
we need it against North because they're going to have Goldstein, Sherry, Larkey, and Coleman Jones. So
they might drop one of them, but they're going to have 3 at least.
Yeah.
So, we seem a little bit tall with Bailey Williams and Harry Edwards as sort of backups. Harry Edwards is that key position backup. Bailey Williams is the ruck backup. But I think we still probably need them both in the side, and then Darling's a little bit more mobile than Dixon, so it probably helps us a little bit there. Nick Nat didn't have a great game. We should probably point that out. Like round 1, a lot of senior players out. He probably got beaten by Wits, so that was surprising. But hey, he's got so much credit in the bank. We're not exactly going to be concerned about it, and I'm sure he'll be fine. But it wasn't a great start to the season from him.
He was crap, let's be honest. He didn't have any influence around the ground at all. And Wits at least evened the ruck contest with him, or halved it. Yeah, and so that was disappointing, especially in a game where we needed our senior players to stand up. Didn't have much bounce or spring to his step, did he? So hopefully, as the season wears on, he'll sort of warm up a little bit into it.
Yeah, I mean the big body just needs a week or 2, I think, to warm up. It's a pretty big engine, and it's a diesel engine. Let's be honest. So it's not going to be out of the blocks at 100%. Maybe just needs a week. So hopefully we'll see the best of him on the weekend at the G. Hopefully we have a win. Early Sunday game. Clearly the boys are pretty focused, and the energy's up. Some big guns coming back. I think North might get us, but we feel a whole lot better about it now than we did, a few days ago.
I'm tipping us for the win, Garby. I reckon.
Nice.
I reckon we're going to get one under our belts. And North will feel like they've probably got something to prove because they were disappointing against Hawthorn, as you pointed out. But the early game at Marvel on a Sunday, Garby, one of my favourites, sometimes viciously hungover. And so I get the Maxibon and the Powerade early. Otherwise, I'll be settling into the seat and watching, well, hopefully what should be an entertaining game.
Lovely. I've got a wedding and I've got the ceremony at the time of the game, but then we've got a break before the actual function. So it'll be phone off for me, get through the bloody ceremony for the wedding, get home, watch it in 2 hours before the wedding starts. So I've really planned out my Sunday to a T.
Nice.
Hopefully it's with 4 points and I can go enjoy the festivities that night off the back of an Eagles win. Thanks to everyone for your feedback on the Nest with the votes and for everything else that you contribute. We love it. Positive start to the season despite not winning, but hopefully that changes on the weekend. Drewy, thanks to you, mate. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Garby. Go Eagles.
This week at Safeway, shop the 10 for $10 produce sale. With the 10 for $10 produce sale, get items like large avocados, mangoes, green, red, orange, or yellow bell peppers, cucumbers, large lemons, or 16-ounce bags of Signature Farms baby peeled carrots for the member price of just $1 each. Plus, select meats like Signature Farms 80% lean ground beef and Signature Select extra meaty pork loin back ribs are buy one, get one free this week. Hurry in before these deals are gone. Visit Safeway.com for more deals.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.